Hidden behind steel doors lie the greatest stories the auto world forgot. From factory wars to near-death legends, this is Vaulted Wheels, unlocking the machines that built America.
Let's just imagine for a second that you're walking down the street in pre-World War II America. You know, the roads are completely filled with those upright, boxy, chrome-heavy cars of the era, and then you see it. Just gliding silently past you is this mysterious, handleless, pitch-black anomaly. I mean, it literally doesn't even look like a car. It looks like a spaceship that just dropped straight out of the sky. So we're going to look into a vehicle that was so far ahead of its time, it honestly seemed alien. It's an incredible story full of brilliant engineering, massive wealth, and, well, devastating tragedy.
Which brings up a really fascinating question. What if the future actually arrived in 1938? Just imagine a machine so profoundly advanced that it was predicting crash safety protocols and crazy aerodynamics decades before the rest of the auto industry even had a clue. And the thing is, this wasn't just some styling exercise. No, this was a total top-to-bottom reimagining of the automobile, and it was built right when most Americans were still just trying to survive the Great Depression.
Now, automotive writers and historians, they've been absolutely captivated by this thing's ominous, almost sci-fi presence for a long time. There's this one quote that I think perfectly captures it. The dark, low, hovering form of this car manages to lurk wherever it appears. Lurk. That is such a great word for it. Because, you know, it's pretty easy to design a cute car, right? Or a comical one. But to design a genuinely imposing, formidable machine, that takes a very specific kind of vision. It kind of haunts us, like this dream of tomorrow that got abruptly cut short.
Part 1. The Rebel Heinz Heir. Let's talk about the vision of Rust Heinz. Because to really understand this machine, we absolutely have to understand the mind behind it. Enter 22-year-old Rust Heinz. Yes, that Heinz. He was the heir to the legendary H.J. Heinz family. You know, the massive ketchup and 57 varieties food empire based out of Pittsburgh. But while his family's world was super safe, pragmatic, and all about feeding the masses, Rust was different. He was a Yale dropout studying naval architecture, and he had zero interest in managing condiments. He wanted to build America's very first supercar out in Pasadena, California. And when his parents basically flat out refused to fund this massive aerodynamic gamble, well, this rebellious entrepreneur just went ahead and convinced his supportive aunt to bankroll the whole revolutionary vision instead. Part 2. Building a Supercar with Bowman and Schwartz.
Okay, let's dive into this, because having a wild dream is one thing, but actually bending steel and aluminum to your will? That is a whole different ballgame. Heinz took his blueprint straight to Baumann and Schwartz. These guys were gritty, custom coach builders who usually built cars for Hollywood's elite, and what they put together was sheer engineering madness for 1938. They actually made it a front-wheel drive subframe to this massive custom tubular chassis. And the body? It was made of hand-hammered aluminum stretching almost 20 feet long, weighing in at a staggering 4,600 pounds. To actually get this massive 6-passenger behemoth moving, they tuned a V8 engine to push it to a reported 115 miles per hour. It was literally a physics nightmare, but they executed it perfectly.
You can also see how Heinz's background in naval architecture, plus this deep obsession he had with aviation, just bled directly into the cabin design. I mean, think about a completely flush dash. The driver is sitting there monitoring an altimeter, a compass, and checking a roof-mounted switch panel that looks like it was ripped straight out of a bomber plane. Get this, there weren't even door handles. The fully enveloped doors opened using electric push buttons. Oh, and it featured curved, green-tinted, triple-layer safety glass, which was practically unheard of back then.
But, as you can probably guess, all this innovation came at a really steep price. Building this single prototype cost an absolute fortune, $24,000. And remember, we're right in the middle of the Great Depression here, so that's the equivalent of over $500,000 today. Heinz was taking an astronomical financial risk. His big master plan was to eventually put the car into limited production and sell it to the ultra-wealthy for about 15 grand a pop. But obviously first he needed the whole world to see it.
Part 3. Fame and Fatal Flaws, or as Hollywood called it, the Flying Wombat.
So, to drum up publicity and try to recoup those massive costs, Heinz actually turned to Hollywood. He managed to get the car cast in a 1938 movie as the Flying Wombat, and even got it displayed at the World's Fair. It was a total sensation. But beneath all those dazzling flashbulbs, there was a fatal flaw. You see, Heinz demanded absolute aerodynamic perfection. He wanted completely flush fenders, absolutely no running boards,
And sure, it looked like a sleek shark on camera, but that relentless pursuit of aerodynamics directly caused a massive thermodynamic failure. Those tiny front louvers severely restricted the airflow. The V8 just couldn't breathe, and it would rapidly boil over during testing. It got so bad that the engineers had to frantically retrofit 2 separate Lincoln radiators in there just to save the whole project from melting down.
Part 4. A tragic irony, passenger safety.
Now, if we look past the Hollywood glamour and the overheating engine, we find something really profound hidden right inside the walls of this vehicle. Heinz actually had this groundbreaking foresight into something the rest of the world was completely ignoring at the time. The Corsair wasn't just a supercar, it was essentially a rolling laboratory for passenger safety. Heinz purposefully designed that cabin structure to be a fortress. The interior walls, the ceiling, the floor, they were all lined with thick cork and sponge rubber hidden right beneath the upholstery to absorb energy in a crash. He was out there utilizing energy-absorbing materials literal decades before government safety mandates even existed.
Which sadly brings us to July 1939. Rust Heinz was back east, visiting his family in Pennsylvania. After a dance one evening, he was riding as a passenger in a friend's open-top Buick. As they ventured out onto the Lincoln Highway, they were suddenly broadsided by an unseen vehicle. 6 people were injured in the crash, but Rust Heinz suffered severe head injuries. And the very next morning, this brilliant 24-year-old visionary passed away.
It's just a suffocating irony, isn't it? Here was this young guy who poured his entire soul and a huge chunk of his family's wealth into pioneering a revolutionary, safety-focused supercar. He deliberately built a machine insulated with rubber and cork specifically to protect its occupants from the violence of the road. And yet, his life was cut tragically short simply because he happened to be a passenger in a standard, completely unprotected open vehicle of that era. The man who literally saw the future just didn't live to inhabit it.
Part 5. The Phantom's Legacy, a one-of-one ghost.
With its creator gone, the dream of a limited production run just instantly died. There was never going to be a fleet of supercars changing the American highway. Instead, the prototype became this orphaned artifact, literally gathering dust in a Queens warehouse until 1942. And over the decades, it got passed around between several owners. At one point in the 1950s, a television personality bought it and inexplicably painted the whole thing gold and even carved the roof into a targa top, which is just a tragic disfigurement of Heinz's original vision. But thankfully, fast forward to the 1960s, and legendary collector Bill Hara bought it. He painstakingly reversed all those modifications and restored the Phantom Corsair to its menacing, original 1938 specifications. So today, you can actually see it resting in Reno, Nevada, looking exactly as Rust Heinz intended.
When you look at this shadowy, lurking machine today, you really can't help but feel the heavy atmosphere of what could have been. What if Rust Heinz had lived? What if this 24-year-old rebel had actually been given the decades he deserved to push aerodynamics, safety, and performance forward? The Phantom Corsair is absolute proof that the future really did arrive in 1938. We just lost the man who brought it to us.